Oops. Oops. All right, we're here. Good morning, everybody. I didn't realize I've already been streaming for 14 seconds. That's embarrassing. Hello. What's up, Cassandra? What's up, Jar Manny? What's up, Ken? What's up, everybody who's chiming in here? Lovely Thursday afternoon or Thursday morning, chatting with you guys today. It really is flying by this week, isn't it? Or it's dragging, one or the other. What's up, Canary? How you doing? Um, I'll tell you, the show in the morning and the show at night, it really creates kind of like a treadmill effect that moves at the exact pace that you would expect it to. I kind of like it. Um, we've got a lot that I would like to chime into with you here today. Uh, we are returning back to normal. We have Malia of the last 24 hours who's going to be on the program from 10 until 11 today. She's working counterterrorism, provides a unique perspective surrounding foreign policy and a number of other different factors. We're going to be talking about the, USS Abraham here, Iran's new leadership and the conditions, the 7 conditions, I should say, of the potential ceasefire deal that Israel ultimately ended up backing out of, Washington's counter conditions, and energy updates surrounding Hormuz, and a number of other things as well. So, and of course, an NDAA explainer. What was hidden in the $1 trillion defense budget that was just recently passed. So, all that and more coming up with Malia in the 10 o'clock hour, which just gives us the 1 hour to be able to jump into what we're doing here. Welcome as more of you guys are trickling in here. I saw from the comments last night, some of you guys were not big fans of Ben After Dark yesterday, and others really enjoyed it, which welcome to my life. But I hope you guys can at the very least appreciate. I'm trying to avoid becoming an echo chamber here. I feel like a lot of us are kind of wired the same way, and outside the box has always been an avenue where all political voices are welcome, and that includes listening to people that you disagree with. And my interviewing style is kind of like giving people the rope and then allowing themselves to just kind of, tie it around themselves and do what they need to do. I don't have necessarily a super aggressive style, which I feel like the internet has made a lot of people feel like that is a normal interviewing style. Like, I'm not a debate bro kind of guy. I'm more of a this is what I think, you tell me what you think, and I'll just allow you guys should be able to infer for yourselves why I disagree with what they're saying. Um and see people like Jonathan as well. We're going to have some fun with Jonathan today because he gets a bit confused when he tries to engage in political discourse with me here. But don't you worry, we're going to be able to handle this just fine because this is actually where I want to start. Wait, what did trees are cool? I liked the live alley. Trees, you're wonderful. Thank you very much. And everybody should go and like the lives as we move forward and subscribe. Jeez, oh man, what's going on here, guys? Although it is going up every day, I'm acting like we're not constantly getting subscribers, but I would like it to happen faster. Carla says, yeah, not what I needed or wanted last night, so I bounced. I get it. And what's interesting is, and I've kind of hinted at this before, I'm probably angrier than most of you guys about what happened on Tuesday and about the outcome on Tuesday. But this job kind of doesn't let you do that part of politics anymore. It's kind of like, what's up, Baba? Or excuse me, Tuesday night. It's kind of like, so my first on-air gig, I was doing high school sports, an after show in Beaver and Butler County in Western Pennsylvania. And I asked the people on the air there, I say, what advice can you give me about what I'm doing? And they said, the best advice we can give you about any kind of media is you are no longer a fan. You don't care if the Steelers win or lose. You care that there's an interesting enough story for you to talk about on the other side of it. And you kind of have to wire yourself that way. And I kind of carried that attitude over into how I do my political show as well. So I hope, even though I try and tamp down my disappointment and frustration with what took place, because I feel like that's what my role in this little community that we've built is. Please know that I am pretty upset with what took place, and I'm going to be moving forward accordingly. And for the record, I will be at the David Crowley event at 11:30 on or 11:30 today. He's going to be at the Appleton Beer Factory. I think it might just be a media thing. I don't know that for a fact. You can show up if you want. I can't tell you what to do. But I do have a lot that I want to get into there with you guys. Um, him specifically, and allow me to highlight exactly what it is that I think is why I think we need to talk to him. They had a brunch yesterday, and Baba, I see you. Let me set my show up here a little bit, and I'll bring you up. All right. Um, there was a group meeting of all the Democrats in the aftermath of the election yesterday. They all went and got brunch, and they're trying to, keep the peace, show everybody like it's time to vote blue no matter who. And that's going to be the theme of the first hour, about the relevance of that statement. But here's the deal. Crowley was asked, and I'm not going to give a name on this, but I have a source in the Wisconsin legislature who had some comments about what took place. And at the end of the day, one of the focal points of this general election, and probably why I'm most frustrated about Francesca Hong's loss, is because much like in the 2024 election when Kamala was taking billion-dollar donations, well, that all of a sudden ends my ability to highlight that the Republican Party is bought and paid for and is going to do pro-billionaire stuff. Because as long as the Democrats are also bought and paid for by them, it's hard for me to say something different. The similar story that we are going to have here in Wisconsin is the conversation surrounding data centers. Had Francesca Hong come out on top, there would have been a clear distinction. No corporate dollars entering the campaign. No data centers will be getting built for a year while we figure out what we are doing here. With Crowley at the top of the ticket now, there's a very different scenario for everybody in Wisconsin. And if data centers is high on your list, it's not for everybody. Some people care more about childcare, elder care, health care, public schools. Everybody's got their cause. Healthcare is my main drive, but surveillance, data accumulation, all that is very high on my list. I received a message yesterday that I want to read. Last night's biggest winners in the primary were Kalshi, Amazon, Meta, OpenAI, Ken Griffin, and Jeff Yass by funding a $3.6 million in Super PAC, combined with another $2.8 million in anonymous Super PAC spending. They were able to buy the Dem nomination for the only candidate in the race, including the Republican, who has refused to repeal the $1.5 billion tax break for data center construction or the $385 million annual tax break. $6.4 million in shadowy spending to save $1.5 billion. Well, that's just smart investing. The 76% of Wisconsinites who want a data center moratorium, they should have invested their own millions in a super PAC to buy their own candidate if they cared so much. Ready or not, more unregulated data centers are on their way. David Crowley is going to have to work overtime in order to disprove those statements, because he gave a very milquetoast statement on the back end of the brunch yesterday, which is kind of ironic. They went to a brunch because in the 2024 fallout, they were referred to as brunch liberals, and then they all went to brunch, which, let's not talk about the symbolism that's going on there. But that's going to be a major thrust, a major focal point. And much like how Donald Trump or Tom Tiffany, when you ask them about the affordability crisis, they just say like, yeah, well, we're going to do what we need to do to get prices down. Well, okay, that doesn't feel like you actually have a meaningful idea. It just sounds like that was a bunch of buzzwords without any actionable content behind it. So, it seems as though you don't have an agenda. And it's the same thing with Crowley and data centers. He has a generic line about it. Unfortunately, I don't have it up. He's like, we got to do what we need to do to make sure that these data centers are regulated appropriately and that our environment is cared for. Like, the environment is one component of it, but I'm not willing. This is why I never let the mainstream frame my beliefs and my arguments from their perspective. Yes, I want to make sure that the environmental element is contained, but I also want to know about the tax dollars. I don't want to hear that we can't expand Badger Care or do something about child care because there's no money, but we're going to throw $1.5 billion at fucking Microsoft. You know what I mean? And I'm just picking a random company. It could be anybody, but the principle still holds. That is what people are going to want to hear, and that's what I am hoping to get an answer to today. So the cost of living is generally unaffordable, but we should prop up candidates. Kristen, that was sarcasm. I hope I read things dryly. When he said uh the 76% of Wisconsinites who want a data center moratorium, they should have invested their own millions in a super PAC to buy their own candidate if they cared so much. That was sarcasm. I thought that was laid on pretty thick, but just in case anybody was not interpreting that as sarcasm, the implication is that a handful of billionaires threw millions of dollars into a pot and, by this person's estimation, bought the seat through being able to advertise and whatnot, whereas Hong was requiring more of a grassroots approach to things. So, just to be clear, that was sarcasm that I read in my patented Ben Cominos dry voice there. Yeah, no, not at all. They were saying that from the perspective of that's a ridiculous thing and money in politics is ruining politics. That was the way I would do it. Like that was the way they were saying it. So just to be clear, that was sarcasm. Um what do we have here? Yeah, Carla, don't walk away from what you're doing. You're one of the people that we need doing this right now. We make more than enough money to weigh help weigh. Okay, I'm sorry that sentence was butchered. You're gonna have to retype it. Um, okay. So in any event, yeah, take care of your mental health, absolutely. But also, you're the kind of warrior we need on the YouTube. Allow me to catch up here. I've been punchy lately, Ben, but I'm ready to listen again. I feel that. I absolutely feel that. National Firearms Act of 1934 has been gutted. American ability to exercise their Second Amendment right is no longer based upon financial status. Poor people can exercise the rights now too. Um, God, Jonathan is so stupid and he talks so much. Ben, here's my takeaway. If Fran had won, we would have gotten a complete buying in of all Democrats. The Crowley faction will not include the Fran group. The Democratic Party will be split. Tiffany wins. I disagree. I disagree. I think 4 out of 5. Here's the thing, Brian. More establishment, more moderate liberals always paint the picture that progressives don't jump on board. Look back, Google it on your own. Google Bernie Sanders helping Hillary Clinton in 2016. Because if you listen to the narrative, it's that Bernie refused to assist in any way. He did not endorse Clinton. He did not get his supporters behind her. Go back and look at the news articles on your own of what Bernie Sanders was doing in 2016. The narrative that the left doesn't show up, I think, is a laughable one. And to be perfectly frank, Bud, I think it actually operates in the other way. I think, and we'll find out if I'm wrong in Michigan in November, but I actually think it operates the other way. I just think that moderates tend to cry louder about it. And that's why the narrative goes that way. Much like with MAGA. MAGA cries louder than any group of people. And that's why people pay the most attention to the dumb shit that they're saying, because they cry very loud. So it's the same principle there. Blue Canary says leftists understand what harm reduction is exactly and how important it is. I would agree. Um, Justin says, I'm just happy they're getting together, so hopefully it works out for us. But I'm fully expecting public schools to close, all of our parks to be bulldozed for data centers, and every mom and pop shop will close, so we'll all be forced to shop at Walmart and Kroger. It's a hard message to get people behind. You know what I mean? Justin, I got to get you the Discord link, and I have to do it for CKK as well. Once the show ends, like I'm going to see Crowley as soon as I get off the air today. I have a FaceTime with a woman named Wisconsin on TikTok who is very active in the data center world, who said she has quite a bit of info to feed me. So she and I are going to chat. And at the end of that chat, we're probably going to discuss a time to bring her on this program to talk about the work that she's been doing in northern Wisconsin. I'm meeting Tim Roush because if you guys weren't listening to Ben After Dark yesterday, Tim Roush is the first sponsor, the title sponsor of Outside the Box. We're going to be bringing him on the show in the near future. And Roush Plumbing and Remodeling is a fantastic company that believes everybody should be able to have a voice in the world of political discourse and has jumped on board with keeping Outside the Box afloat. So everybody who's looking for plumbing should be thinking about Tim Roush. From going to meet with him after my appointment with Wisconsin to go and work some things out with the professional studio that he is setting me up with. We got to get some things rolling here so that we're ready by the beginning of September. And then I got Ben After Dark. So that's why I keep telling you guys I'm going to get you the Discord link. And then I end up not getting you guys the Discord link because I just never freaking stop moving. So with all that, I will get you guys the stuff, but I'm working on that here. Explain Trump's win to you. I mean, again, Brian, there's a chance Tom Tiffany wins if David Crowley can't get right on data centers. That's the thing. What I always say is centrists need to explain what they hate about the leftist movement, because leftists will be the first one to tell you in 2024, I'm not happy about Gaza. I am not happy about the cost of living. Corporate greed is obviously strangling us. And Kamala Harris' campaign did nothing about corporate greed, did nothing about Gaza, did nothing about anything. By the way, you know who was standing with Lena Khan, the best part of the Biden administration, as she was the chair of the FTC, breaking up all these mergers? Francesca Hong. While Kamala Harris was not committing to it because she fully intended to remove Lena Khan and allow these mergers to go through, Francesca Hong was standing with that person. And I would argue the majority, probably more than the majority, probably closer to the supermajority, are against the mergers in all of these industries where there's already not enough competition. So it's going to be contingent. Vote blue no matter who is not a slogan. It is going to be contingent on David Crowley to come across for these people. I'll tell you what, Brian, check out the video. I know your wife is on Facebook. You can just check it out on YouTube. The most recent short I threw up there. Go ahead and check it out. Michelle said fabulous. I'm going to screenshot that if you don't mind, Michelle. Oops, nope, that's not the right one. It's Shift Command 3. There it is. All right. But we'll end up seeing the Democratic Party is too stupid to realize that they could lose the election if they don't embrace Hong's principles. Well, that's real. That's real. They're expecting to just say the words and everybody's going to fall in line. Or, oh, after enough time, people will fall in line. The hatred for data centers is real. And more importantly, it's also bipartisan. I'm not saying you're going to win over half of Trump voters by embracing that narrative, but what I am saying is there will be a percentage of them that show up. And if you didn't notice based on that primary, 1% of voters matters a shit ton. About 600,000 people voted during the primary in the Democratic half of things, and it was decided by 3,000 votes. That's 0.5%. Just say that the $1.5 billion subsidy is gone. Just say that the $385 million subsidy is gone. And what we're going to do with that instead is fund all the social programs we all talk about and reduce anybody making under $150,000 taxes by a little bit. How's that sound for a campaign that's probably going to walk away with a victory in November? Do Democrats want it, or do they want that sweet, sweet data bucks dollars? That's all we need. But so in any event, from the other side of the equation now, um, the Republicans seem to only have the one playbook in when it comes to the aftermath of elections. And for the record, TikTok, I am mocking them for this. I am not endorsing this. This PSA will probably not help you to not fucking censor my live today. But if you could just grow a pair for me, TikTok, the app, not people on TikTok. TikTok, the physical app. I am condemning these actions that I am about to talk about. All right. So as long as we are all on the same page there, I'm going to move forward. If you guys haven't seen, because I know not all of you follow my socials or check out all my shorts on YouTube, the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel put an article out yesterday, and I read the excerpt last night. We're going to redo that, but I've added to it since then. To be honest with you, there's not a lot of policies. This is Crowley speaking on whether or not he's going to do something to win over the Hong people. To be honest with you, there's not a lot of policies we differ from. Crowley said when asked if we could implement any of Hong's policies. I think one of the problems I used to have in all these forums is that we're saying the exact same thing in different ways. The question isn't related to policy. The question should be who can get it done. That is the key, right? Well, I disagree because Francesca Hong was going to get a moratorium done and not funnel tax dollars into it. So you're not saying the same thing if you can't come across on that front there. And again, we'll see if they're willing to jump on board with that, but that's a big we'll see right now. But so that's what he said, is there's not really a lot of difference between us. Here's what Tom Tiffany said, the 4'2" phenom, Tom Tiffany, who this is at 10:30 a.m. yesterday. We barely had found out. Outside the Box was still on the air in the aftermath of the primary when Tom Tiffany said, David Crowley admitted his policies don't differ from Francesca Hong's socialist agenda. His record proves it. He doubled the sales tax, raised property taxes, and can't even manage Milwaukee's county budget. He failed Milwaukee County. Don't let him fail Wisconsin. Now, I am going to be bringing, hopefully, I haven't reached out to him yet, but I'm going to reach out to Dan Schaefer of the Recombobulation area. He's an independent journalist based in Milwaukee, knows quite a bit about why Milwaukee is struggling with the budget. And spoiler warning, it ain't because of the Dems. So we're going to be getting a much more in-depth analysis, hopefully, if not tomorrow, early next week on that matter. But is Tom Tiffany a piece of shit? You betcha. And good morning, Raul, down in Southeast Wisconsin. Thank you for being here. It took about 5 hours in the aftermath of the primary when a literal woman who identified as a Democratic Socialist lost for the Republican Party to begin referring to the eventual winner as a socialist. And I really hope this is a wake-up call that will absolutely not resonate with anybody that actually needs to hear that reality. But that is something that they are facing right now, is they are going to have to battle the socialist claim now, despite the fact that Crowley, if we're lucky, is going to be center-right. The AI doesn't care about my intentions. We'll see. We'll see. But so you're already seeing half of the Republican playbook play out right there. Oh, he's a socialist. Okay, fine. I'm so nervous about that. You know what? You guys have handled the economy so well. Why would we ever possibly be demanding anything different than what the Republican Party has been able to do for us? But that is just the tip of the iceberg. When I first moved out here, Rachel Cabral Cavero was running for the Senate before people really knew who I was. I remember she came up to me in private life and she's like, a lot of people in my party questioned why I agreed to come on your show, which is hilarious because that means they're talking about me. But I had her on the show. She was running against Chris Alfheim at the time, Chris Alfheim Dassler. Now, Rachel ended up winning. She is the senator of that seat now. She's running with something there. But she is quoted, there was a picture of two women with big smiles saying, Wisdom's fucked us, Fran, which is a funny shirt. But she says, not sure what they're all smiling about. It is true. Who's trying to get on here right now? Someone who means it. Let's see here. Is this someone new? Before I go on from that, let's see. We got a new messenger here. Always down to see what the new people have to say. Hello, you're on Outside the Box. You there? All right. Yeah, surprising how often that happens. I'm about to discontinue TikTok guests. Um, but so she's saying I'm not sure what they're smiling about. It's true, implying that the Wisdoms did fuck over Fran, and I just find that hard to believe. All right, we got a couple more people asking. We'll try this one more time. We got Ace Fault Empire first. What's on your mind, Ace?
Good morning, Ben. How are we doing?
All right, how about yourself?
I'm doing okay. So I just want to say something real quick. I mean, I've said this, I'm going to say it once, I've said it before. We as a country, with all this politics stuff, we are all doing what Star Wars has said was going to happen. You know, we're all doing what the Jedi and Sith do. All it is it's just back and forth stuff, and nothing is getting solved. I mean, look what the Jedi Council did when they said, well, there's a problem. All they did was, point at the Sith, say, well, the other side did this, the other side did that. Nothing is getting solved. We as a community, we're trying to solve it because, like Ben said, none of this is getting solved, and we have to do it ourselves. If we're ever going to get any of this figured out, we have to work together, because it's the only way this will ever work is if we come together and we start really digging in deep. We will get this figured out eventually.
I agree. It starts with community, and you go from there. And it may sound cliche, and I appreciate that, Ace. I appreciate the comments as per usual. You take it easy, but I think you're exactly right. It's a matter of thinking smaller. All national politics are local, all local politics are national, and you kind of got to embrace it that way. I said it yesterday, and I'm going to say it for the foreseeable future. Francesca Hong losing on Tuesday just means that we do not have the support to stop data centers from the top. It does not mean that we have lost our capacity to stop data centers on a community by community basis. Wausau is evidence of that. Shawano is evidence of that. And there's plenty of other evidence if I had them all written down in front of me right now, but I do not. There's plenty of examples. Flock cameras going through the same thing. We just do not have the top-down support right now, but it doesn't mean that 500 people showing up to a local institution and letting people know we're pissed off about the stuff that they're doing behind the scenes will not have that same impact. I don't remember where I was. I think it might have been at the watch party. But we were talking about how the county clerk makes like $150,000 a year. We were joking, like, what does a county clerk do? You think they want to lose that paycheck? You think they want to piss off enough of their supporters that they're not going to win the next election if they do the obviously unpopular thing on the local level? You bet your ass they don't. So they're going to listen to you. So it just means that our work is cut out for us. It's just not going to be as easy as it was going to be with a woman up top that was willing to say, actually, I'm just going to shut this shit down right now and give everybody 12 months to kind of get their shit together and figure out what the best path forward is. That would have been the best possible outcome. That would have been the most desirable outcome, I think, especially for most people listening to this show. But I'll tell you, I'm actually more pissed off than ever about the data center stuff. That's why I'm speaking to an expert about it later today. Like, I am intending to make this show one of the bullhorns to stop the construction of every single one of these fucking projects because I do not trust them. And so that is where it starts. Ace is exactly right. That's how it starts. CKK, I get that Star Wars isn't real, but you have to admit the Phantom Menace was pretty spot on. They're talking about increased tariffs and blocked trade routes and the emergence of an evil empire, but like the politicians really can't organize in a reasonable enough way to actually help stop it in any kind of way. You have to admit it's pretty uncanny because that movie was universally panned when it came out. But we have to undo decades of brainwashing. Yeah, that probably would help. The data center issue is huge for me too. What's the point of anything else if we hurt our resources? I feel that. I absolutely feel that. Good comment, Jonathan. You're really contributing to the group there. But that is just the tip of the iceberg here. Let's keep it rolling, shall we? Um, there it is. The Persistence, aka Scott Pressler. If you're not familiar with Scott Pressler, he's a long-haired individual. He's like the token gay man for the Republican Party, who they march around from city to city where he riles up the troops to show up to vote, and then they always fucking lose. I'm not sure that Scott Pressler has ever successfully run a campaign to get a Republican across the finish line. I made the joke in my video this morning. I wish I could have the success rate that Scott Pressler had and still get paid the way that he does. I'm not sure that he's ever actually accomplished anything before. He says, I wonder how Francesca Hong's supporters feel knowing establishment Democrats conspired to defeat her. The drunken Derek Van Orden, House Representatives member of District 3 in Wisconsin, currently running against Rebecca Cook this year, says they flat out gripped the I don't want to say it because TikTok's going to ban me. They flat out, the election. Derek Van Orden, Tom Tiffany, Rachel Cabral Guevara, Scott Pressler. The list goes on and on. Every single one of them is doing the poor man's outside the box, because they understand, and I think it's very important. And I said this last night during Ben After Dark, that part of the reason why I'm reacting the way that I am in the aftermath of the Hong loss is that this is the first election, and we're going to have to get used to this going forward. Republicans know that there is a fracture in the Democratic Party, much like Democrats knew that there was a DeSantis contingent and a Trump contingent of the Republican Party, and they were trying to exploit that. MSNBC and CNN giving an endless platform to Nikki Haley, who signs her name on bombs that were about to drop on Gazan children, much to Jonathan's delight. Ron DeSantis, who's never met a tax cut he doesn't like and would like to remove all taxes, getting regular airtime on MSNBC while they were blackballing Donald Trump from getting airtime because they were trying to sow that divide. Please understand, the Republican Party is intending to do the exact same thing in the other direction. And I will never advocate for vote blue no matter who. I will never tell you that you have to vote for David Crowley. That will never come out of my mouth. I will never shame you for not taking part in the election because you are that mad. That is absolutely within your right to behave that way, and that is my firm belief regarding politics. That's why I said it's a poor man's outside the box. They're trying to do what I do. I have a firm belief that a lot of these Mother Hubbards listened to my show in 2024, and now they're trying to emulate it. Here's the problem. Most of them are boomers. Most of them are corny, and most of them don't have the city attitude that I have, and it's very easy for somebody like me to see exactly through what they are trying to do here. They are trying to sow that discontent within the left so that the turnout is tamped down. If you are coming to that conclusion organically, by all means, stay home. I am not telling you, you got to prove them wrong and show up and make sure that the establishment knows that we all stick together. No, I'm not that naive. If you don't like what Crowley is running on, you are not obligated to support him. But do not allow these pissants to show up and convince you not to do it, because I'm telling you right now, there's going to be troll accounts bitching about the taken election during the primaries. And it's not even going to be someone that intended to vote for Hong. For all we know, Dane's one of them. Stay home and show them who's electable. He may very well be. He has never been on this show since Tuesday. He may very well be a Republican. I like what he says sometimes. I don't like what he says sometimes. But this is the way that you are required to think. You never know. And so you have to be able to come to your own conclusions, determine what matters most to you. Because I'm here to tell you right now, a Tom Tiffany victory means tax cuts for the rich, war in Iran, no actual movement on social programs, and in all likelihood, a reduction in social programs. The list goes on and on. David Crowley means a lot of bullshit right now unless he figures out a way to evolve on some stances going forward. And it's a matter of figuring out what matters to you and what doesn't. So to teach the Democrats a lesson, we have to let Tiffany become governor. I mean, here's the thing, though, Kristen, that is a line of thought within the left, right? It is. They're like, oh, they think we'll show up no matter what. They think they can advocate for the genocide overseas and that we'll still show up and vote for them. Watch this. But as Violet highlights, I don't think they want to learn that lesson because whether Tom Tiffany wins or David Crowley wins, the system fundamentally is going to stay relatively the same with a couple of more knickknacks in a David Crowley governorship. Same principle nationally. Listen, all of you, Star Trek is better. I agree, CKK, by the way. Sanders didn't back Hong because he's not interested in governor elections. That is at least his line for sure. If the DSA sits out this election, how can they expect support in the future? Well, I mean, there's an element of that as well, but I also think it would be contingent on seeing support in the present. I think it needs to go both ways. You need to show some interest in caring about what it is that they cared about. Justin, I'm thinking of Princess Bride. We said that. You keep on saying that word. I do not think it means what you think it means. No democracy-loving American should vote for Tiffany. I don't think anybody is showing up and voting for Tiffany that hears the sound of my voice right now. It's a matter of if you're showing up at all. That is the main debate right now. And again, I can't stress enough. It is a debate less than 48 hours after the election happened. A lot of people's emotions will be sorted out. I'm not being hyperbolic. For 3 weeks after Kamala Harris was forced on top of the ticket, I just did blowtorch media. For 3 weeks, I was so fucking angry. For 3 weeks, I talked shit on Blue MAGA and centrists and the lack of interest in trying to reach across to the left. And then I went and voted. You know what I mean? So, like, it doesn't mean I'm not saying if they pull that bullshit in 2028, I don't think I'm showing up. But I also don't think they have the balls or ovaries to try and pull that shit again. But I am saying that I was so angry. And it was evident in every show that I did for weeks. I remember I was doing my show live at the Republican National Convention when the announcement came down the pipeline. I was in the heart of the beast. I was in a position to shit on Republicans nonstop, and I could not stop hammering the Dems the entire time that I was down there because that's how mad I was. Now understand that I am also a professional and I'm supposed to be able to figure out how to be able to manage these emotions. Now picture you're just somebody that for the first time ever was excited to vote for a socialist, feels like the Democratic establishment conspired against her and is very angry right now. Some of them are going to show up. Some of them are actually not going to. Hoes are going to bounce back. I don't know if that's a compliment or an insult, Kristen. But like, that's my own lived experience, and I'm willing to bet that if enough of you looked inward, you'd probably feel the same way. There's a link for anybody that wants to join the program, BT Dubs. I'll give it to Allie as well. I need to start remembering to add that into my normal routine here. And Ali is eventually starting school, by the way. So sometime in August, anybody who is a regular on this show who would be interested in being a moderator on my YouTube page, who can be here more often than not, let me know. I can't take a bunch, but I mean, I'll pick if like 8 of you do it, then I'm going to have to pick, and I don't want to create enemies, but like it's not a lot of work. But if you can help just like sharing links and whatnot while I'm doing the show, that would go a long way to helping me out if Allie's not able to make it as often as she normally is once classes start back up in September. Blue Canary says, I keep saying we have until November to decide, don't have to commit today. Exactly. And for the record, the Democratic establishment has until November to evolve on their beliefs as well. And I think that's an important thing to remember as well. The schisms on the right are nowhere near as large as the schisms on the left. We're free thinkers to our own detriment, perhaps. I do oftentimes say the Republican Party doesn't have to worry about a left. You know what I mean? Although, if the Republicans did not, the difference, Dane, is that when the Republican voters tell their party what they want, the party goes along with it. They tried their damnedest to convince Republicans they didn't want Trump 2.0. And then Trump got about 75% of the vote. And they were like, well, I guess we're doing Trump 2.0 then. Time to figure out how to attack a guy that we're not sure he knows what year it is right now. And they rolled with it because fundamentally, Donald Trump is no different than Mitt Romney. I said this last night to my libertarian MAGA friend, Brock. I said, what have we gotten under Donald Trump? A tax cut for billionaires and a forever war in the Middle East. What did we get under Bush? What did we get under Reagan? Fundamentally, what Donald Trump represents is not that different than a traditional Republican. The left actually represents a different type of politicking. The fact is, we really are a different party. But if we ever separated and became a third party, Democrats and the left would never win. There's not enough. So it's just a matter of winning from within the party and then expecting centrists to fall in line, much like they expect the left to do. And as long as 4 out of 5 do, it normally turns out all right. The comments of Tiffany page are all thanking God for his win, Tom says. Are you talking about Crowley? Because they feel like they have a better shot of beating him. I do think Crowley will mop the floor with him, honestly. I'm only voting for Crowley because he is from an IBEW family. And when I run for office, I want union supporters to show up and vote for me. Reasonable. I get that, Killa, but I still think he's a bought out bullshitter. I feel that as well, Raul. I'm writing in Hector Camacho. I feel that. Who paid Crowley to get back in the race? The same ones who got the others to drop out. Well, here's the deal, guys. I mean, this is why it happened. It's not particularly difficult to understand. A $1.5 billion tax credit to the companies who want to build these data centers. The unions are set to make a fuck ton of money for the next 4 years building these data centers. And then eventually we're going to build our digital prisons, and a lot of the same people who'll be responsible for building those prisons will be bitching about the aftermath of those digital prisons. And I will be the first one in line to show up and mock them from my digital prison. And that's where the money comes from. That's why the unions coalesced. It's why the business dollars came in. It's all very, very straightforward. Violet says data centers go up quick. Notice how much quicker data centers go up than high-speed rail. That tells you all you need to know about the uniparty. Ferg says until they hire scab labor like they always do. Very well could happen. Kelda and Joel didn't drop, which feels less icky than if they did. I agree. I talked about that yesterday. There was no moment that pissed me off, but that won't stop Republicans from doing the only thing they know how to do, and that's crying about election frogs. Brambo says Dems can't stop doing this to us. Data centers take years to build. CKK says feels like they pop up overnight. Excellent explanation. Thank you for expounding on the bought out theory. Makes sense. Benza hopped on the backstage thing here. Hold on, I'll bring you up. First time on the show. What's up, man? What are you thinking?
Hi, how's it going, Ben?
All
So I
right.
said thought, yeah, I'm a little disappointed in the uh election, obviously, but I think it would be kind of cool to get Crowley up because as you know, at the Wapaka data center meeting, how everyone showed up. I don't think it would be too hard to get like every side of the political spectrum to show up and like protest and like let him know where we stand. The only one I think would be reluctant, I think, was established Democrats, but I feel like everybody else will have no problem like bullying Crowley into so
Yeah, I think there's a lot of truth to that. Where I get nervous, and this is where my if you're familiar with the phrase kabuki theater, which is a Japanese custom where they imitate real life, but it's like an over the top version of it. Whether Crowley or Tiffany wins, the data center is getting built, and sometimes I wonder if the money being funneled into both parties is really the outcome, and whether and like Democrats can cosplay anger in a Tiffany governorship while the data centers go up, or Republicans can bitch about socialism while the data centers go up. You know what I mean? And that's where I get nervous.
oh
I hope you're right, but that's my main
yeah.
concern.
Well, another thing to think about too is so like it's extremely frustrating like coming like from a more rural area where a lot of people have their Tiffany signs up or they're like pro mega, not realizing
Yeah.
you can't be against data centers and be for Tom Tiffany. Like that's just so I have a feeling that if Tiffany is elected, those people won't show up. They'll say, "Oh, he's doing everything we can," but their backs are tied. But if Crowley's in office, suddenly all these people that are anti-data centers will have more conviction because it's a democratic face they can put to it. Whereas with Tiffany, a lot of people I think would stay home and they wouldn't go through to like show up to protest and say, "Hey, we're all 80 or 90% of Wisconsin and we don't want this, and you have to listen to us." So I don't know. I'm super bummed, but I feel like if Crowley, if there was any candidate that we could kind of push to serving the people at least a tiny, tiny, tiny little bit, and that's on data centers where everyone agrees. I just feel like that's the route to go.
I love that. I actually like that. I hadn't heard that perspective surrounding what would bring, because I'm a big believer. If Dude, you're spot on. I'm not even going to expound further on that, but you're right. Republicans show up when Democrats do shit they disagree with, and then act like it's for the greater good when Republicans do it. And I think there's a lot of
All
validity
the
to what
time,
you
and
mentioned
it's
there.
insane.
Yeah, I love it. Hey, chime in again. I think you bring great insight. Thanks for being here.
Awesome, no problem.
Yep. Right. Uh, Cool. All right, we're gonna get him out of there. I feel that V for Vendetta would have been a best response. I feel that. I never see Republicans MAGA protests about shit. Masks. OG Justin. They protest about lockdowns, but only when Biden was doing them. That's my main thing. If flock cameras can go up when Republicans are in control because Republican politicians tell all their whites that the cameras are there to catch illegal immigrants, not them. Then Kamala Harris goes and puts up a flock camera, and all of a sudden it's to catch all the white Trump supporters. And then they're angry about flock cameras. I've oftentimes said this. I guarantee you've heard me say this perspective on my show before. Democrats create a permission structure for us to do fucked up imperialism stuff abroad. Republicans create a permission structure for us to do fucked up imperialist stuff domestically. Mass Virgin Army, it's okay as long as we're going to catch damn Mexicans. It's not okay if we're cracking down on white nationalism with that army, though. Genocide in Gaza is okay as long as Joe Biden's in office because Israel has a right to defend itself. Notice now that 4 in 5 Democrats are against the war. I said it when Kamala Harris lost. The one silver lining about it, I said, is that I think a bunch of Democrats are about to realize that they are, in fact, against the murder of children, and they're going to start vocalizing that now that they're going to be able to associate it with Donald Trump. Every war is easy to be against it until it's the war represented by your party. Then it gets a lot harder. We can narrow all GOP protests down to the Proud Boys. Yeah, maybe. MAGA are specifically people who do not understand the importance of protests. Now, remember when all the truck drivers created like a barrier between America and Canada because they were mad about the vaccine or masks or some bullshit? I don't remember. But you guys remember that? And they like shut down the transportation and like the banks started like closing down their bank accounts and shit. Like it went way over the top very quickly. And like they absolutely protest. You guys remember January 6th? Do you guys remember January 6th? Right? Jonathan, what happened on October 6th? We are conditioned to reject socialism. Fake news, man. What part's fake news? January 6th, probably. Okay. Yeah, it's fine. Yeah, it was a protest. It was a violent, stupid protest. That's all it was. Look, I'm not saying they bring it like progressives, all right? I'm not trying to make that false dichotomy, but I am just saying the right woke crowd will be brought to protest, but they only have the balls to protest the Democrats. The left, when Joe Biden's in office, goes and protests the genocide because we have fucking principles. Protest is protest. There's no, I'm not the protest police here. That's the establishment. I'm not going to tell people that there's a specific definition of it. The coolest part of the COVID protests in Madison was the guillotine. It's the best part of most protests. I'm joking, TikTok. Let's see what the people on the Book of Faces have to say, shall we? I'm going to remember to mute it before I bring the live up because I'm getting good at the job. There we go. And then I'm going to go to my new studio and have to start all over again. There they are. Bear with me here, everybody. Any thoughts on the DNC election frogs story coming out today? Bro, this is literally happening on my feed as I'm mocking it. That's crazy. It's not a conspiracy when it happens right in front of your face. This is what I'm talking about. This is what I'm talking about. And I love Peter, and I love, this is a different Cassandra than the normal Cassandra. These are not normal interactors on the show. And yeah, the show's growing, and I'm glad that new people are interacting. I'm not trying to discourage new people from interacting, but please understand that one of my mentors, when I first started, always told me, if you're doing this job and you're not paranoid, you're not paying attention. And I think that's always very good. It's always a very good attitude when you do this job for a living. And I'm just saying, there was no election frogs. All right. There's a lot of people, and I think a lot of them are on the right, trying to create this theory here. Most of the left is just moving on. You know what I mean? We're pissed. There were a lot of good things that happened. There's time to move forward, onward, as is the progressive slogan there. Onward. Next time. Just because you lose one election does not mean a war is lost. It is just one battle. And that is the mindset, and that is the way that people need to move forward. Shauna says, I am upset and disappointed in the Dem Party. The fact they had such a movement and busted their ass while he just walks back in and wins with backing from Evers. Shame on him too, and losing to someone who came in after I decided to run first. Yeah, the only good thing is that Rick Crossan came out. I feel that. Oh, it's forward, onward, whatever. I don't do slogans. No, I haven't jumped into the Air Force One story today. I'll be honest. You know, like, you know, that's my attitude. I'm I don't really, those kind of stories. That's why MAGA listened to my show in the first place. I don't really cover that kind of shit. I didn't cover the Trump trials. I don't care that he got off the plane. I don't care about any of that shit. I care that healthcare costs are skyrocketing under Trump, and it'd be really nice if there were a resistance party that were like, hey, here's why your healthcare costs are so expensive, and here's what I'm going to do to make it better. And that's kind of my focus, but I get you. Pretty sure Caroline Levitt quit over that. That's interesting. I figured she quit because she was going to vaccinate her kid. She posted that fake image of the baby getting 72 jabs when he's born, and something tells me then she's going to go and vaccinate her kid. But yeah, you're probably right. You know? Wouldn't I quit? Probably. I probably would have quit a long time ago, for what it's worth, gamer. I do this stupid thing where I have principles, you know? I'll always say, as pissed off as I am and probably will be forever about the firing, the nicest thing that they did to me is not come and say, we need you to calm down the rhetoric, like to give me a chance to see if I would change the way that I would. Oh, my bad, Baba. Let's get you on here. They gave me a chance. They it's not like they were even like, let's see if he'll tone down how he's talking about things. That never happened. They just were like, get out of here, because they knew exactly what kind of principles that I had surrounding and how excited I was to be working at a place where, up until the end, I was able to say what it was that I wanted to say and make the point that I wanted to make. Baba, are you still in here? I apologize for missing it, but you're more than welcome to come on. Request again. I don't seem to see you on the thing here. Let's see. Are you still in here? But so I say all that to say I would have quit the Trump administration long before the assassination attempt happened. You know what I mean? But to each their own. Maybe if I were making millions of dollars doing my media job, I'd be more persuadable. But I'll be honest, even if I made like $2 million for 1 year, because this is how I'm wired, I wouldn't. Like, what are we talking about here? You know what I mean? Like, there's you guys remember Wall Street, the movie with Michael Douglas and Charlie Sheen from the 80s? They made a sequel to that in like the early 2010s with Shia LaBeouf and Michael Douglas. It was really shitty. I only watched it one time like 15 years ago, but welcome to the inside of my mind. I don't forget a lot of things. And there's one cameo scene where Charlie Sheen shows up. And for those of you that don't remember the 80s movie, it ends with Charlie Sheen staying in Wall Street and setting up Michael Douglas with a wire, and then he ends up going to jail, and Charlie Sheen stays. And the implication is he's probably going to become part of the system. You flash forward to the sequel, and Charlie Sheen's like, yeah, I made a couple $1 million doing X, Y, and Z, and I've been retired ever since. I'm just doing this, and I'm living life and enjoying myself and trying to enact positive change. And I'm like, I love this, and I realize it's a movie and it's not real life, and most people do not react that way to these kind of things, but that is what I would be. You know what I mean? Like, if I worked in an administration, I got $2 million for like being vague about shit, and then they were like, Ben, we need you to convince us that immigrants are everybody's problem. I'd be like, well, I think you probably need a different voice for that, and I'd call it a day, you know? And like that's just, it's probably why I'll never be rich. Air Force One story is such a non-story. Well, that's why I think the media is covering it wall to wall, so they don't have to talk about anything else. I keep reminding you guys, pay attention to the fact that no one is willing to talk about corporate greed. Even Trump said one time, the oil and gas companies are charging too much and they are making way too many profits for what they're doing. Malia, I texted you the link. Actually, you know what? I can just throw it in here as well. Pop. There you go. Just go ahead and punch that link in and we'll get you there, though. But he even had the guts to say the oil and gas companies are obviously charging you too much for what you're paying. Yes, the war, he's trying to deflect from his stupid decisions for starting a pointless war. I'm not going to pretend that it's not a deflection, but the Republicans control the House, the Senate, and the presidency. You could pass a bill tomorrow that talks about windfall taxes on the excess profits that the oil and gas company are doing. Let's see here. We'll see if this is a butt dial. I do have a guest getting ready to come on here. Malia, that link is in the YouTube chat. Go ahead and hop on. What's on your mind? I see.
Well, what religion do you follow?
I was raised Christian Orthodox.
Well, what do you believe now?
Doesn't matter. What's on your mind? Okay, you got nothing. Thanks for being here. All right. So in any event, now that we got the virgins out of the way, let's get back to having conversations that people know what the hell they're talking about, shall we? This segment has been on hiatus for the last couple of weeks due to scheduling conflicts and my lack of internet and just being a confused mess and so on and so forth. But we're bringing it back. Malia, aka the last 24 hours. I'll bring her on to tell you who she is. Some of you guys that are regulars have gotten used to hearing from her here, and we're bringing it back here. I'm bringing you up now, Malia. Here we go. Bang. How are you today?
I'm good. Just give me 1 second. I didn't realize I had you on both the YouTube and the backstage. So.
Oh, sure. You're good.
Taking care of the audio on my end.
Yeah, you're absolutely fine.
Okay.
Yeah, well, welcome back. How was vacation?
Not long enough, but at the same time, so much happens. I mean, it's torturous to be an informed citizen at this point because you take a week off and boy.
Isn't that the truth? Isn't that the truth? When I went to Thailand, because it's basically 12 hours difference, there was nothing going on any of the time that I was awake, and I was gone for 2 weeks. And I left. I was on the plane to South Korea the day Alex Preddy was unalived. And for all I knew, we were in the middle of, the next civil war. I had no idea. And then you come back and see where things ended up, but it's absolutely wild. So a lot of new listeners have joined the program since the last time you and I have chatted. So why don't we, you and I deal in foreign policy, surveillance, a number of other different things in the world of politics here. Give a little bit about your background here. We won't do this every time, but as long as new people keep joining, we may as well let people know why you're relevant. So what expertise do you bring to the conversation we're about to have?
Right. So I served in the U.S. Air Force as an intelligence analyst. I focused on counterterrorism. Iran was my specialty, so I had a close look at what we were doing in the Middle East with our allies, Israel being one of them, and then our joint efforts fighting terrorism. And lo and behold, it looks like our allies are not what we were led to believe. So when the war started with Iran and us bombing that school, something broke inside of me where I was like, I can't be silent on what's going on anymore. As a result, I have launched the last 24 hours. I have over 100,000 people who read and follow and keep up with what's going on and my takes on geopolitics, things that affect our national security, surveillance contracts, ALPRs being one of them. That's how we got connected.
Yeah, Malia was speaking at the first flock meeting that I had went to. I was very impressed with what she had to say, so I immediately chased her down after it. I was like, you should come on the show. I think we could probably relate here, and the rest is history here. We are going to get into our allies in the Middle East in just a moment, but I actually want to start on the USS Abraham here. That is a very interesting conversation for I would argue for a lot of people, and I've been looking forward to this conversation with you because it'll provide some insight for me as well. So let's start a little bit here with what's just actually been happening. The servicemen and women on that ship were promised a certain tenure of time on that ship, and it looks as though it's going much longer than anticipated. What's the background there? How did we get here? And what's the general reaction to what they're going through?
So as somebody who has been deployed twice, having a deployment extended is not uncommon. I was in Bagram when the Qurans were burned. It was a big deal. My deployment got extended time and time again. I bring that up because it wasn't just your typical extension where you don't have a backfill. It's an extension during really hostile times. There's a lot of uncertainty. I've also been on deployments where the supply chain is scarce. So what does that mean? Getting your necessities, like your toothpaste, your deodorant, the things that you need to buy when you're over there, because right, you only pack so much. If you're told your deployment is X amount of time, you bring the supplies for that amount of time. Well, when you run out, I mean, how would you feel if you couldn't take a shower with shampoo and conditioner or had toothpaste available to you, and then you're being told you're just being told that your deployment's getting extended time and time again. So I have a contact out there who was told with their sailors that their deployment that was supposed to end sometime around May, June was going to be extended, and there is not an end in sight for this year. So
Wow.
having that context in mind, that is also what those sailors are experiencing on the USS Lincoln. Two of them have jumped overboard. One successfully went over, one was an attempt, and another service member was able to pull them back. But that is, they're at a breaking point with their mental health. And of course, they've got resilience counselors, but there's such a stigma around mental health in the military. There's a very real fear of being dishonorably discharged. And if you get a dishonorable discharge, well, now you lose all your benefits. You lose your health benefits. You lose your ability to have that 20-year retirement. You lose, for those who are enlisted, I went in enlisted because I wanted to use the GI Bill. You use your ability to have the GI Bill if you get a dishonorable discharge. So that is one reason why a lot of these sailors and deployed members are not taking advantage of your resilience counselors, because there's never really been trust that you are taken care of. So,
So,
unfortunately, there's not really a way out for these guys.
So just to be clear then, because that was going to be my follow-up question, there's several reports here, Military Times, The Independent, Newsweek, all using the phrase jump overboard. That's literal then, like jumping over
Literal.
with no, so you're in foreign territory, you're jumping over the boat, like you're just like, I'd rather try my chances out there than on here. That's essentially the attitude when you're doing something like that.
Right, because you got to think about it. There is no way to go home. You are deployed, you are stuck. What are your choices? If
Yeah.
you're really at that kind of a breaking point for these service members who are choosing to go overboard, well, now they're on a mental health hold. Clearly, they're not safe to be on a ship at this point in time for their physical safety. So that's very likely that their deployment is ending. I wouldn't send that trip back out to the front lines.
Yeah, Jay, former servicewoman in my TikTok chat, this topic has been getting me heated. My fellow battle buddies are suffering as a result of Trump's ego. Is it naive to ask, because it is a brotherhood and a sisterhood within the armed forces? You hear that all the time. Once a Marine, always a Marine. I'm wearing my Folds of Honor shirt as we speak right now. Plenty of people in my life provide this kind of insight here. Is there an element, because and I may be, I don't know if this is out of your purview here, but I oftentimes wonder about this. The adage outside for civilian life, right? Our grandparents, I had to walk uphill both ways in order to get to school, and you're complaining that blah, 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 blah. Is there an element, because a lot of Trump supporters skew older, when they hear this story, they're like, 2 weeks without shampoo. When I was in the armed forces, X, Y, and Z happened. Or is it a collective, like, we're supposed to be improving these lives? Are there people that have the quit your belly aching adage, or is it just widespread frustration right now with what this story is, at least in your experience? How does that typically look?
I am seeing just widespread frustration. Like you said, we're family, right? That is something very unique and special. I need to decline that.
Oh, you're good.
There's just like a special bond that's formed there, and yes, we rip on each other, but when it comes to, they're fighting the mission now. It's one team, one fight. We want them to come home. Um, I have heard some chatter about, well, maybe it's not really that bad, or on my deployment, I had this experience. And this is just like one anecdotal story that I've heard. It's not
Sure.
any reporting I'm seeing online, but just one anecdotal story. And I mean, come on, the military doesn't do anything standardized when it comes to deployment. I mean, every deployment that I've been on was drastically different. I've had experiences where we're not getting fresh food for weeks or months because the supply chain just can't get to us effectively. So, for people to try and minimize that our service members aren't getting the right sustenance, I don't believe that for a second, because I experienced that.
Yeah. Okay, that's very interesting. And I mean, so I have a new resident Islamophobe in my chat that only found this show a couple days ago, but I do like to embarrass him when I get the chances to do so here. We're talking about bipartisan politicians cutting funding and so that they're broke. When is this a problem? Like, and I'm not trying to, I don't defend Democrats. I don't carry water for Democrats. Is this poor mismanagement from the top? Or is this the kind of thing? Would we be here if Kamala Harris were president? Is this on the commander in chief? Is this on the defense secretary? Is this a systemic issue? Or how do you end up in this situation?
I mean, ultimately, it is your leadership to hear your concerns and to take care of you and to help boost that morale. So I absolutely put this on, up to the top, the chain of the command, the president. He oversees it. His lack of concern appears to be trickling down through Hegseth and the others. It's just, I, so I have a contact. I've known this person for a very long time who is in a position of leadership on this deployment, and they learned real time, along with the people that they oversee, that the deployment that was supposed to have ended May, June doesn't have an end in sight this year. And so their service members that they oversee are now pissed off at them, thinking that they're withholding information. And so it breaks your trust in your chain of command if you can't even trust your frontline commander on that ship or on that base to look out for you as a human being, right? Because you don't want to learn real time with X amount of people that, hey, your deployment that you were hoping to go home 2 months ago isn't going to be happening until maybe January 2027. So then you take it out on your leadership. So it's a leadership problem from the top down, because she or he should have been told what was going on so that they could have had conversations with their team to build that morale. But they're at every chain, it seems that they're failing these service members.
And so we're just stuck in a holding pattern then. Do we know as civilians what their intention is out there? Like, how in depth does this story go? Is there some way for public outcry can't do anything, right? At the end of the day, this is an armed service kind of thing. So they're just, at this point, we're in a holding pattern, just, and these people are going to deal with it. Is that basically where we are then?
So I think that awareness really helps these issues. I think accountability is really, maybe awareness isn't the right word, but it's accountability for our leaders, and reporting on these stories is what forces them to make better conditions for our troops. Um, there's really not a whole lot we can be told, because again, like, there is that operational security concern. You don't want to talk about mass troop movement because that's just a part of the classified puzzle. It may not be classified, but if you get enough puzzle pieces, you can get a classified picture. You know what I mean?
Sure.
So we'll never know the troop movement, but having no clear end in sight, like, let's forget that we're, at a war of choice by this administration. We're also going into the holiday season. Morale's low now. Just think about the holiday season and
Yeah.
this war continuing on.
Yeah. No, I saw reporting today. This is the highest, the cost of gas, and I don't want to put the cart before the horse because we're going to be getting into crude oil and all that jazz later on in the hour. But at this point in the year, this is the highest gasoline has ever been. What would
Hmm.
right now, which I find very interesting. Um, let's switch gears here, although not entirely. You know what's interesting? And when I say interesting, I mean sad. There was an announcement the week you were on vacation. There was an announcement about a peace deal between Israel and Gaza. And I was so skeptical that I didn't even talk about it on my show at any point. Like, I didn't even breathe life into it because I'm like, if I know Israel, and I think I do, I know where this is ultimately going to end up heading. And I wasn't going to give Trump even 24 hours of good publicity for this peace deal because we saw it happen under Biden. I've seen it happen enough times that I knew where this was going. And sure enough, Benjamin Netanyahu rejected the 15-point plan. How did we get there?
So the peace deal, the biggest kind of contention is Hamas has to disarm, which, I mean, let's set aside October 7th. When you're a Palestinian fighting for your right to exist, and that is, Hamas was their elected government until Hamas disbanded, but they were fighting for their ability to protect their land, to live. And so we have this genocide going on October 7th. What was that, 2023? Now we're in 2026. Trump comes in with his 15-point peace plan because he's going to bring peace to the Middle East. Again, right, I was very skeptical, especially when you saw who was on the board of peace.
Sure.
And the ability, you had to buy your way in to receive a permanent spot on the board of peace, which is just doesn't sound like a very good method for finding individuals to push for
I would
peace.
agree. Typically,
But
these people aren't particularly wealthy. But go on.
well, okay, so I just to put a fine point on it, I believe when they signed the Board of Peace agreement at its onset, I think it was a year ago, maybe 2 years ago, Netanyahu couldn't even be at the signing because he had a warrant out for his arrest for war crimes for the genocide he's carrying out. Anyway, so Hamas on July 30th has agreed to disarm. And at first, like you, I was skeptical. I remained skeptical. But when I saw the president announce on his Truth Social this historic moment, it made me feel like, okay, there is some credibility to this. This isn't just propaganda or hopeful wishing, or like this is real. But then you see silence on the Israeli side. Netanyahu doesn't say anything publicly. We see within his own government, so it was Ben Gvir and Bezalel Smotrich then decided that, or they didn't decide, they announced that they would like to have a vote so that they can reject the peace plan because they decided now, oh, well, we didn't really agree to this peace plan. This isn't really representative of the Israeli wants and goals. So let's vote so we can deny it and reject it. And so we're going on. We've got July 30th is when Hamas agrees to disarm. And as part of my reporting every single day, I go and I check the Prime Minister of Israel. He's got an announcement portal. So I'm looking there every single day to see if he is accepting the peace plan or not. And I'm looking at the war diary every single day to see what's happening on the ground. And I do see, there was at least 7 days, 8 days perhaps, where there were no kinetic strikes. No Palestinians were executed by Israel in 7 days. But then I see something interesting. So it wasn't through a press release. It wasn't through his Twitter account. It wasn't through his, official prime minister page on his government's website. It was on his Facebook account. The Prime Minister Netanyahu, in Hebrew, announces that he does not support the peace plan. So that's clearly just trying to hide it from American audiences, right? Like, I'm not crazy for thinking that.
No, anything in English is meant for us to hear it, and anything not in English is meant for us to not know that it happened. And I think that works, by the way. How many people are going to run it through a translator? Not many. So
yeah. No, I had to screenshot every single screen. Whenever the text would come up, I had to screenshot it, turn it through a translator to see what it was saying.
Yeah. No, I believe it. And I mean, realistically, do you have any insight? Because he's allegedly coming up, he being Benjamin Netanyahu, he's allegedly coming up against an election here in the near future. I'll believe it when I see it. You oftentimes hear the contention, this is Benjamin Netanyahu's government. This is on Benjamin Netanyahu. And in order for the people of Israel to be able to be viewed positively again in the eyes of the world, they're going to need Benjamin Netanyahu gone. It, by your estimation, how real is that? Because to me, if he's trying to win an election and he's squashing this peace plan, I feel like, just politically speaking, you wouldn't be doing that if you thought that more than half of the people would be mad that you were doing that. So is there a candidate running on the peace plan? Is there an elected official that possibly could be stepping in to kind of replace what's happening here, or no?
So that is a great question. So the people that are running against him, the party, they are running on a premise that Netanyahu has been too weak on the war. They think that we've given too many concessions. So the Israelis have given too many concessions to America. That America is kind of stomping on their sovereignty when it comes to their war plans and them needing to run what they would like to do through us for approval prior to a kinetic strike activity. So there was a poll recently I included in an assessment that Israeli public now, as of June 2026 this year, view Trump as not good for Israel. So you have to put that in the context. What do you mean not good for Israel? What is he doing that would be not good for you? He's pushing for the peace plan. He's trying to de-escalate the war. Israeli citizens, they want, by and large, the large population is pushing for continued occupation of Gaza. They want the forced expulsion of the Palestinians in Gaza. They want settlements in Gaza. The people that are coming to that if he loses his election, they're not running on a platform of peace. They're running on a platform of Netanyahu is weak and we need to be doing more.
Mm-hmm. That's kind of what I expected the answer to be. For the record, we do not plan our questions in advance. We have a basic idea, so I never know what she's going to say when I ask these questions. So I'm not surprised by what you had to say there, though. That seems to be my interpretation of what's been going on there from a more layman perspective as well. Let's keep the conversation focused on Israel, but transition to the bombing of a different segment of Muslims here, and that, of course, talking about Iran. There was a plan put together there. Iran has 7 conditions for a peace deal here. And so, well, here, I'll just pop them off. No more threats or insults. I feel like that's impossible given our president. Permanently end the war on Iran and its allies in Lebanon, Gaza, Yemen, and Iraq. Lift the naval blockade. Withdraw U.S. forces from Iran's surroundings and compensation. Lift all sanctions. Release frozen assets. A lot of these included in the Obama deal here. And to be perfectly frank, Malia, it really doesn't sound like any of these are over-the-top asks for us to return back to a way of life that kind of was existing before the war. Something tells me it's not being perceived as that straightforward by a lot of parties involved, though.
Well, it's not that simple. So one of the points on there is withdraw U.S. forces from Iran's surrounding, right? So we've got bases all over the Middle East, and those are meant to act as a security umbrella for our allies. And well, we can see that security umbrella is turning into a lightning rod for retaliation from Iran because they can't strike us in America, so they can hit us where we're based.
Yeah.
So that one is...
Yeah, it's hard because it's kind of like with anything else in life. It's hard to fathom something when it's not there, and then it's hard to fathom not having it once it's been in place. And I often state, if Russia were like, yeah, we have 7 bases in Canada and Mexico, just in case Trump's been threatening Mexico lately, we're just being safe here. I don't think we would accept that. Very similarly, Iran kind of going through the same thing here. But so... do you think Iran has the leverage right now? Because it feels like eventually they'll overplay, but I don't see that happening. Every time I have you on, I ask for another prognostication, and like realistically, we're 3 weeks removed from our last conversation, and I'd argue we're even further away from an ending to this conflict than we were the last time we spoke. Is that a fair assumption? And how likely do you think they can get 5 of these? What do you think they can ultimately push for? And what should Iran accept?
So what I could really see them pushing for with the Secretary of the Supreme National Security Council, the new leader is Mohsen Rezai. He is an IRGC hardliner. Back in May, June, when we had the original ceasefire and MOU, he criticized Iranian government or leadership as being weak to accept those terms. He criticized the Iranian leadership of being weak for extending the ceasefire. So now this is the new secretary running the show in Iran. So we've got a hardliner pushing for a cessation to hostilities in Lebanon. So that's your Hezbollah group, where we see Israel is operating within Lebanon territory. They refuse to move. There has been individuals going out into Lebanon to surveil the area, and you're seeing obviously the forced displacement of 1.2 million Lebanese displaced. We've seen homes demolished, razed, exploded, just absolute destruction from the Israeli military. So I don't see the Israeli military stopping the attacks there. I mean, there are negotiations in Rome right now. The most recent round failed in their talks to produce anything of sustenance. So now the next meeting is supposed to take place in 3 weeks, but Israel has to stop their military actions. Same with Gaza. We've got Hamas in Gaza. Iranian leadership supports them as one of their proxies through arming them. However, recently, the Iranian leadership has said that they will support Hamas in whatever decisions that they need to make because, again, they're surviving through a genocide that we're watching in 4K every single day. And then in Yemen, we see the hostilities are ramping up there. That's where the other choke point is. So we've got the Houthis, or Ansar al-Allah is another name that they go by, but they've got ballistic missiles, and they've got a blockade on Saudi Arabia oil coming and going. So you can see how challenging it would be for us to stop our hostilities because of the quagmire that we're in. We need real talks to take place, but how can they get to the point of having talks if we can't even agree to stop striking each other?
Yeah. Yeah, that sounds about right. By the way, our resident Israeli apologist, Jonathan LaFontaine, is saying you can't even defend genocide, or define genocide, which feels kind of sexist, Jonathan, if you think about it. But do you have any comments to Jonathan here, as he says that it seems like we are doing propaganda?
I don't pay attention to those guys because they just try to distract you from what's real. Anytime that you're talking about something of value, for example, when I post about the Israeli war diary, literally from their website, their information, I'm told that it's fake news. So I don't give them any of my attention because they're not worth any of my attention. We already know what's going on. We can see through the propaganda. We know that Israeli propaganda has paid Brad Parscale through Clock Tower X $1.2 million a month just for influence operations so that we'll view Israel in a more favorable light. Be gone. That's what I have to say to that.
You're a better person than me. I hammer the trolls. I can't help myself. I see it. I'm like, oh, let me highlight exactly how stupid, which is why. And you did a good job. That was exactly the answer I wanted. So that was fine there. So there is a counteroffer coming from America. Again, I believe with none of my heart that Israel's going to accept any type of thing here. But there is a counteroffer coming out of D.C. What are we looking at there?
So the original 3 counter conditions were, the Strait reopens before the blockade lifts. The nuclear program would remain suppressed, right? That's why we got into this. And then, Trump is now announcing he thinks that he will just keep the Strait of Hormuz under his control. And now they've also countered with, Iran paying 50 years of compensation. So the Cole families. So that was a USS ship that was struck. Troops that have been killed, the protesters. So it seems kind of petty from Trump, but at the same time, this could be a pathway to begin negotiations of, okay, this is the financial cost you have cost us. Let's at least it's something that is real and tangible that they can begin negotiations on. I don't know if Trump has that foresight or if he's just being Trump.
Probably the latter. We'll find out, of course. Justin, OG Justin in the chat is asking, we're back to real people again. I am curious what Malia thinks as a veteran with that experience about the collaboration of U.S. military and IDF and the misunderstanding that the two militaries were merging. Do you is that we are intending to talk about the NDAA, and so we can kind of just use this as good a segue as any to kind of jump into that conversation. What's your interpretation of what was snuck into Section 219 here, basically in the dead of night, and what that means about the relationship between the two militaries?
Right. So it's not fusing the militaries. It's more so every year annually, right? We have these debates in Congress with how much money we allot to our allies. This merger removes that entire debate, and it's more of they just get this aid as part of being one of our allies, which is crazy because we're not signing a treaty. When we came to our Five Eyes agreement with New Zealand, Australia, Canada, the United States, and I think it's one other nation that eludes my mind right now, but there's not a treaty, but we're elevating a partner to a higher status. So I can understand the confusion of merging the militaries, but we are merging our technological capabilities, the supply chain. There's a lot that could be merged that would be very challenging to undo. And then it also circumvents the Americans from being able to criticize the government and limit what we're giving our allies as aid, because now it's just a given. It's written into law. That's
Sure.
what they would like to see.
Yeah, of course. And I see plenty of people. I see Moondog out in New York saying no more money for Israel. That needs to be a full stop. Violet's interpretation of what you're saying is it's removing accountability. Is that a fair way to assess? And that kind of ties into the beginning part of this conversation about trying to raise accountability surrounding what's going on the USS Lincoln. So is that kind of what we're looking at there then?
Right. And Netanyahu, around spring, I found it really interesting. He was discussing stepping back from relying on America to carry out their wars or American assistance. And then I saw reports in the last month where Netanyahu touts the NDAA, the sections that bind the US and Israel closer together, as being my plan.
What do you think it says that 4 and 5 Democrats are against what's going on over there? 2 and 5 Republicans are against it. We're getting close to a majority of Republicans, and I think after you go under 60 years old, those numbers look even more damning for what's happening. What do you think it says that more than 4 out of 5 senators and House members are still willing to pass this stuff, despite the fact that it's so uniquely unpopular? Massey and Ro Khanna have been very vocal about their objection to what's going on here. They proposed bills that make it look like there's some kind of pushback against something that is objectively unpopular in the eyes of a lot of people that are listening to us right now, as well as people that kind of follow this outside the box. Is there going to be a moment, or is it a matter of the current establishment, this is the way they're going to vote, and if we want to see these things change, it's going to require an overhaul?
I think what you're saying is the latter. It's going to require an overhaul. I mean, Thomas Massey and Ro Khanna have vehemently been against this merger. They tried to force a vote so that they could just be allowed to debate. And I'm not an expert on how this stuff passes in Congress. I understand, Iran and the war, and I understand that us merging our capabilities is just inherently bad. So when I'm trying to just understand how this process works, it really just highlights that no Americans are probably meant to understand how this process works. And it's just really disheartening to try to be an informed citizen at this point in time and advocate for your nation and see your representatives voting in a different manner. So when I called, gosh, so many times, I'm in the 6th district, so my representative is Congressman Glenn Grothman. When I call and I just try to meet with him, this was, months ago when I was bright-eyed and believed in our processes, and I just wanted to meet with him and explain just how bad this is. His whoever's taking his calls, they said, so you don't believe, or what was the quote they said back to me when I was trying to just explain how bad and damaging this is for our nation and how we can't walk this back. They said, so you're anti-Israel.
Defending themselves, probably.
No, I'm not anti-Israel. I'm pro-America. What do you mean?
Right. And you know what's interesting is, and I think I've said this to you before, and I'm kicking myself for not saving the number. I had it written down on a Post-it note at my desk, and when I was perp walked out of there, I lost a lot of that kind of info. But he is so willing to interact with constituents that he gives his cell phone number out regularly. So when you're not getting direct comments from what it is that you are asking, that is by design. And it believes that I believe that design is that it is damning, and more importantly, even though it's not quite a majority yet, enough of his constituents are very frustrated about what's happening, and they find a line for it. I mean, he's facing a challenge in Brad Smith on the Democratic side. Do you have any, just to segue really quickly, I know this wasn't one of our topics, but I think we actually have talked about this before. He has his own, he and I have spoken on this show as well as in our private lives about the future relations between America and Israel and his thoughts on money going out there and the relationship. Do you like what you're hearing out of what you're hearing from him, seeing as you are going to have a decision to make in November?
I'm disappointed that he has not been more vocal and against this war and the support that we give to our allies carrying out a genocide, because at this point, we don't have the luxury to not have a stance on a genocide that we are funding. Like, let's be clear. America's funding this genocide. If he is our new representative, he would be the one deciding, do we continue to arm our ally that's committing genocide or not? So I do expect him to have a very firm stance publicly about these things. And I have not seen that on his website. I looked the day I went to go vote because that was going to be my deciding factor between who I was going to select in the primary. And on the day that we voted, there was nothing on his website about Israel, Palestine, Gaza, nothing. I would love to be proved wrong.
Sure.
I did a Control F and I looked for those words and if I'm wrong, please correct me. I would love to be wrong on that. But from what I saw, there was nothing. So I'm very disappointed in that.
That's the right attitude to take with this. So we have a native gamer listening in Minnesota right now, and I feel like this is something you'll be able to speak to very easily, saying there's one way to stop this, and that's to try people for treason. You specifically have been trying to get people on the record for this exact reason. We've talked about it before, but why not talk a little bit about what that is and how everybody listening can actually take part in what you're trying to accomplish there?
Right. So on Substack, if you look me up, it's the last 24 hours where every single day, I write the briefing for a commander that I would want to see if I was still serving, giving you the raw, honest truth of what every party to the conflict is saying and what the ground truth is. And I provide a call to action, civic engagement at the end of, after I give my analysis from what I've seen from that day's reporting. And it's always something that we can do as Americans. And I mean, it's no surprise, right? Throughout this conversation, you can tell I don't trust our elected officials. I don't think that they are actually voting in the interest of Americans. Perfect example is Congress passing the NDAA. So now it's with the Senate to decide. So with that distrust and that belief, I have provided scripts nearly daily in the Congress call line, which is, I have it in here somewhere actually. It's 202-224-3121. I have the beginning of it memorized. But again, that's your Congress switchboard. It'll get you to the Senate. It'll get you to your Congress member in the House of Representatives. That's 202-224-3121. Call, ask them. Ask them any question. I have plenty of scripts, but just ask them where they stand on anything that is important to you that they are voting on, and then ask for a written response. And then from there, we're building the public accountability record on the USF. So that's the US Foundation portal. The USF is a grassroots organization of veterans, service members, civilians who want a better America. So we are coming together and organizing and highlighting, what's broken in our system and what we can do as people to fix it. So I've identified that I don't think our representatives work for us. So let's build a script. Let's have the accountability. Let's call them, get it written, and then eventually we can prove, are these people voting for us, we the people, or are they voting for a foreign lobby instead? Because when you have over 50% of your constituents saying, I don't support funding a genocide, and you continue to fund a genocide, well, it becomes very clear who they're working for at that point.
Sure. We got a lot of people asking, and just to clarify, if you're listening on TikTok, that's the last 24 hours, and this is available TikTok, Instagram, Substack, Facebook.
I am on Facebook, but you'll have to look me up for, it's Malia, Mehlia. Instagram,
Okay.
I also changed it to Malia Hawkswell.
Okay, perfect. So Mehlia. If you're listening to me on TikTok, Allie has also been sharing her TikTok links throughout the chat here as a moderator. So thank you very much for doing that, Allie. But it's the last 24 hours to anybody that likes what they're hearing there.
Just to put a note in that, the reason why I changed it is because, well, the last 24 hours, that's a pretty generic search term.
Sure.
But I was tipped off that there's some unusual trends in Israel searching for me specifically.
Oh, really?
So I changed my social media accounts to my name. That way it can be a lot more apparent when I'm getting spikes of them following what I'm doing. So I'm on their radar.
Okay, wonderful.
Yeah.
So
it's a great time to be alive. I don't have any mental health crises. I don't do anything dangerous or risky.
Yeah, right. You
Not
you use
suicidal.
an iPhone? Because I heard the new iPhones have chips coming from there, and we know what happens with pagers out of that country. So don't hold the phone too close to your ear
Right.
when you're talking here. So, I mean, to bring it back into the war element here, we've kind of been intimating what's going on, and I'm sure it has to be frustrating for you as well as it is for me from a humanitarian standpoint that the school bombing doesn't seem to have the same kind of weight in terms of American pushback as does an extra $1 per gallon on your gasoline as a result of this war. But it doesn't change the fact that that's what gets people going. And sometimes if you want to get what you want to get across the finish line, you got to find the right messaging there. And it seems as though with the data provided surrounding cost per barrel here, the Brent crude prices, it's kind of flat at this point here, but assuming this continues on, it's probably safe to assume we're going to see those increases happen again here. Yeah.
Yeah. So there was every quarter, and I'm so bad. I wish I had this written down, but every quarter, I think it's the short-term energy outlook, and their previous one from that was covering through to June, July, August. So August just released. Their expectation was that the MOU would bring peace, the Strait of Hormuz would reopen, we would see a price going down. So that was their outlook then. Now their outlook does not have that as a factor in. They do expect a decrease in reliance on Brent crude oil, and that is largely thanks to China buying less. That has helped, and they're relying more on their reserves. But that doesn't make an oil crisis go away. We still need fuel to go to work. We need it. I mean, diesel, right? Just think every single thing that comes into your home or leaves your home is touched by Brent crude or diesel.
Right. Transportation costs, whatever kind of goes along with that. We're going to be feeling it here for the foreseeable future. I hate to boil down people's lives to the politics of it, but do you think the politics of those price increases is going to be enough to maybe convince America to take a less than stellar deal on our half? Yeah, this is the question that I always end our Iran conversation on with you. Does Trump make it? We're at an impasse now where if Trump makes a less than desirable deal, I know Democrats and neocon Republicans are going to dunk on him for it. And the other option is we continue this process and the cost of living is up for everybody and the death continues in the Middle East. Which one of those two is more likely, in your opinion, as we get closer to November?
So, that's challenging. So I when I'm looking through the information, I'm just capturing data points. So one of the interesting data points that I came across was a piece of reporting in Axios by Barack Ravid. So when I want to know what Iranian leadership is thinking, I go to what is it, IRNA News or Tasnim, because I know that that's the mouthpiece for the IRGC. If I want to know what Trump is thinking, I read what Barack Ravid has to say through Axios because he does the reporting from what's coming out of the White House. And there have been talks floating throughout the White House that Trump is floating the idea of just declaring victory and walking away, which, I mean, would be great. Of course, people would dunk on him, but that would be great. But then we also have the interesting data set point that we have troops that are deployed who have been told that they may be there with no end in sight. And then we also have, what was it? There's now reports that Saudi Arabia is trying to bypass the need to export their oil through the Strait of Hormuz. So they're investing in more underground pipelines, which, let's be real, Iran has already bombed some of their pipelines. So that's not really, I mean, that's an option, but that doesn't solve your near term immediate crisis. So I really don't know which direction we're going to go here. I mean, Trump is a challenging person to get a read on, and everything really kind of comes down to what Trump wants to do in that moment. I mean, I know our stockpiles of interceptors are critically low, such to the point that Trump has said he'll try anyone for treason for speaking about our diminishing stockpiles. So let's put that in real terms. Our bases, our aircraft are just sitting ducks at this point because now we have to pick and choose what we're allowing to be struck and what we're going to counter if we go back to the kinetic warfare.
Sure.
So I don't really know that I see a clear end in sight with all of those data points I just threw at you.
Yeah, from a political perspective, I spoke with a guy voted for Trump all three times, was on my evening show last night, and he said, if this war is happening in August of 27, allow me to be the first to congratulate Democrats right now because the entirety of the MAGA movement will have bailed at that point. They are still not at the point right now where they are referring to this as a forever war. And I realize in terms of the actual length of it, I understand that, but in terms of looking forward, I think I didn't mean I wasn't implying that Democrats and neocons dunking on Trump is a reason not to do it. I mean, it's a reason for him not to do it because he's 7 in his mind. And so that was kind of my implication, is that he might get close and then he turns on CNN and sees, Anderson Cooper questioning why it is that he'd be willing to pull out at this pivotal moment in whatever it is and then decide to bail because that's how easily he makes these decisions. I don't know. We got about 10 minutes left here, and I do have a hard out at 11 because David Crowley's in Appleton at 11:30, so I got to get to a thing here. But and you tell me if you'd rather save this topic for like a much longer in-depth conversation. You talk about our depleted stockpiles. We spend more on defense spending every single year. The Defense Department hasn't passed an audit in 6 years. How is it that we find ourselves in just a couple months worth of a bombing campaign that the largest defense budget in the world times multiple times over seems to run out of a stockpile so quickly? Is that normal? Like, that feels like that's a much longer problem than anything Trump is doing. Like, that feels like this is probably something much more questionable happening behind the scenes.
Well, and we can't go too deep into that at this point because I'm not prepared to. But something interesting, Kristi Noem, she was testifying before the Senate, I believe, and one of the things she was being questioned on was these no bid contracts that were being awarded for defense spending. And some of these companies that she was awarding the contracts for example, one of them hadn't even been in existence for an entire calendar year.
Wow.
First time winning it. So I think there's a lot of likely corruption there, and there's probably a much bigger story that anybody even realizes at this point, because there's no reason for us to be depleted to such levels after what we haven't been in war, right? We pulled out of Afghanistan how many years ago?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. Maybe write that down, and we'll get into it a little more in depth in next week's hour there, because that one stands out to me quite a bit. Don't have the money to get toothpaste and shampoo where it needs to go. Don't have the money. Like, the money's got to be somewhere. It's not in the weapons. It's not in the soldiers. So where the hell is it going? I think is probably a question a lot of people have. We're just about out of time for the day, but I do want to bring it back into the world of Wisconsin for you a little bit out of your realm of expertise, and a little bit more as an engaged voter and civilian here in Wisconsin. Just had a primary on Tuesday. The question about the progressive flank versus the more establishment type kind of played out there. What is your initial, or your reaction in 36 hours post a pretty, not contentious, let's say competitive race going on between two completely different ideologies within the left flank of politics?
As a voter, I also feel blindsided by Crowley's victory. I just didn't see it coming. It just very much felt like the grassroots organizing and the will of the people for a better future. And I mean, what was it? Hong was the only one who was against the data centers and wanting to really take a hard look about what that really does to our communities. I mean, Wisconsin is the third largest agriculture producer. So we really, of all states, should be concerned about what this is doing to our environment if we're also, the leader in agriculture and feeding our nation. So I'm very disappointed that, the representative that we have now for the Democrats, I don't know
So
that he has her perspective.
would that be enough in your mind? And like, again, that was kind of what I spent the whole first hour on. A lot of people are in their emotions right now. I am not a vote blue no matter who guy. Actually, that's why the show was as popular as it was when it was on the radio, is that I never fall in line with the Democratic Party. It's a matter of them figuring out what it is the voters want. If November 3rd comes around and it's a candidate who's going to allow 80% of data centers to be built, or 100% of the data centers to be built, is that enough for you to say, screw the top of the ticket, I'm just going to vote for the more local races? Or are you more of the harm reduction attitude towards the conversation there?
So that is hard
And you
to
have
answer
permission to
because
change your mind later, obviously.
right. So it's hard to say what you would do at a future point in time. But for me, as a voter, what I care about most is funding a genocide.
Sure.
I also care about our local communities, so that's where I draw a hard line at. And I, like you, I don't vote within party lines. With the exception of recent history, I've almost always voted third party, different candidates each time, because I go off of what are they promising their base. Do
Sure.
their ideals align with my personal ideals? So, yeah, I don't fall in line with the Democratic Party because, again, I don't think that they actually vote for us or work for us. I mean, I think the wool has been pulled over our eyes for too long, and now we see that it's just foreign lobby spending that's influencing all of our elections, and we've, as citizens, decided enough is enough. So any representative that's taking money from a foreign donor is going to have a very hard look from me this election season. So that's kind of like my hard line in the stand.
I did get that. Like, I don't know if you were listening to the first hour, but I said, because obviously flock cameras and surveillance is high on my list, but number one for me is healthcare funding. It's a big component of mine because I know how quickly the healthcare bills racked up when my mom got sick, and the idea that that sum of money might fall on someone is devastating to me. And so everybody has their priorities and how they're going to vote. And I think it's a very important. You're never going to find someone that agrees with everything that it is you have to say. It's just a matter of finding the best coalescing that you possibly can. So I absolutely respect that answer there. Won't be the last time we're talking about that, I'm sure. I got to get in wrap up mode here, though. So we are speaking with Malia the last 24 hours. How do we find you? You're everywhere.
I am everywhere, but I think I did send you a text about this. But the most important thing, if you want to find me in person next week on the 20th on Thursday, DFLOC is having a National Week of Action. So to find us, go on Facebook. There is a group called DFLOC Fox Valley. I'm pulling that up right now just so I can read it off correctly.
Do your thing.
But then there's also, where are we at here? Thursday, August 20th at 6:30 p.m. There's the flock cameras. What are ALPRs? It's a NINA community discussion at the NINA Public Library. What this serves to do is similar to what we did in Oshkosh with our grassroots organizing. We felt our elected leaders were not hearing us. They were minimizing our concerns, and they weren't educating us, right? They say that, oh, we need an educated constituency, talk to us when you know more, right? So we decided to take it into our own hands. We had a community discussion in Oshkosh where there was so much community engagement, local experts coming together. So that is what NINA is intended for. We're going to have a community discussion. A lot of community individuals are going to come together, and it's an opportunity to network, and especially for people who are feeling heartbroken about the election that we just had, let's take that grassroots organizing and apply it here, because we know that we care and we're stronger together.
Perfect. I'm sure we'll talk about that in a much more in-depth fashion next Thursday, seeing as you'll be on here in the morning. We can kind of pump that up. I might even, depending on what my day looks like, I'll try and swing by for that as well. But that's good stuff there. Malia, last 24 hours. Look her up on all the socials. Look her up on Substack. And she's on this show, obviously, every Thursday from 10 to 11 Central Time. Thank you very much for being here, Malia. Always a pleasure, and we will talk again soon.
All right, bye.
Bye. All right. Oops. There we go. Good stuff there. Thank you very much for everybody who was taking part in that conversation. And that really is, I love the community element of it. It's like I said to you guys in the first hour. There's a chance that the top of the ticket might not reflect what you want, but you know what that means? That means that you can use your voice in order to crack down on the local representation who absolutely want to hang on to that position as much as you think they do. Yeah, I think you spelled it right there, Violet. So if you're mad about data centers, if you're mad about flock cameras, if you're mad about our funding going to Israel, you can let people know on the local level, and it will trickle its way up. Unlike trickle down, that actually does work. So I appreciate that very much. Glad she replaced the professors. I love that. Moondog saying that's great, Ben. So glad you have this as a recurring segment and kick-ass guest, man. Yeah, I'm a big fan. What's up, political? Yeah, exactly. Call the reps, let them know you're pissed off. That's kind of the attitude there. But I gotta start making things roll here. Jar Manny saying doors open at 11:30 at Appleton Beer Factory for anybody who might have the capacity to get out there. David Crowley is going to be showing up. I'm intending to bring my portable mic and try and get a question asked about data centers while I'm there. I don't know if this is going to be that kind of venue or not, but you can bet your asses I'm going to try and do it. That's again Thursday at 8:20, 6:30 p.m. at the NINA Library for what Malia was talking about right there, about deflocking NINA, 6:30 in the library. Thank you, Lorelei, for continuing to share that there. Go grab some Crowley signs. Yeah, totally. Look, I'm probably going to vote for the dude, but I'm not going to pretend I'm excited about it or use my platform to push people to do it. Have you all subscribed to my channel? There are 65 people still currently listening, down from 80 something. I should have said this when we were up a little higher. If you are still here, make sure you click that subscribe button. We're less than 160 subscribers away from crossing the final monetization threshold of this show. That would go a long way to helping to make sure that Outside the Box is able to stay user friendly. Crowd-funded is the ultimate goal, so that we can quite literally say and talk about whatever it is that we want. And that's ultimately going to be the goal. I absolutely love you guys. This was a really good show today. I feel like it went by in the blink of an eye, which is always a good sign as a host. It's funny how much more succinct and how much more quick I can speak when I'm not wrestling with just a mountain of a hangover. But we got there. So thank you very much, guys. I got to get rolling. I got to clean myself up and get ready to go be a public-facing person again. Together we are stronger, says Jeff, and I totally agree with that there. I will talk to everybody later on this evening, and I will be sharing, if there is video worth sharing, I will be throwing it up on my socials if something good comes out of this conversation with Crowley a little bit later on, so please do stay tuned for that as well. I will talk to you guys all soon. Have a good rest of your Thursday.